Today's story is about New York's most dangerous serial killer, Joel Rifkin.
Bodies and body parts all over the New York metropolitan area.
Joel Rifkin has told police he's a serial killer.
Joel Rifkin was born on January 20, 1959 to unmarried college students, who quickly placed him for adoption. 3 weeks later, Bernard and Jane Rifkin adopted the baby and took him to their home in New York. By 1965, the family moved with another adopted child named Jean to East Meadow, Long Island. At first, the New York City suburb seemed like the perfect place to raise young children, especially since Bernard Rifkin was making good money as a structural engineer. Unfortunately, young Joel Rifkin had difficulty adapting at school. According to his biography, his stooping stature and slow gait made him a target for harassers, and his teammates often excluded him from sports and other activities. Although intelligent, he had academic difficulties due to undiagnosed dyslexia. This strained the relationship with his father, who could not understand why he was not making good grades or interacting socially. The harsh teasing continued from kindergarten through high school, and despite teenage Joel Rifkin's attempts to make friends through the track team and yearbook club, none of it worked. As time passed, he began to become more and more distant from his peers. The more Joel Rifkin got into himself, the more problems he had. By the time Joel Rifkin reached adulthood, he had largely given up on achieving personal or professional success. Joel Rifkin spent most of his time alone and began to develop dark fantasies about raping and killing women. When he began his studies at Nassau Community College in the late 1970s, he also became obsessed with visiting sex workers. He would often skip school and his part-time jobs to spend time with them. Despite his attempts to attend other schools, he continued to have difficulties in class. Around the mid-1980s, Joel Rifkin gave up on the idea of finishing college. He returned to live with his family, as he did not have much money. Meanwhile, as he struggled to find work, his father committed suicide after a painful battle with cancer, and his murderous fantasies continued. He would isolate himself and internalize these fantasies without developing strong social relationships, explained criminal expert and former FBI analyst Mark Saffer. Head inward. In 1989, Rifkin's violent thoughts exploded when he killed his first victim, a 25-year-old sex worker known as Susie, whose real name was Heidi Balch. After Rifkin brought Balch to his family home while his relatives were away, he beat her after they had sex. He then strangled her to death before dismembering her body in the basement. After that, he disposed of her body parts in various places in New Jersey and New York. Among these places, his head was left near Hopewell Valley Golf Club. But although the head was found a few days after the crime, no one was able to find out the exact identity of the victim until long after Rifkin's arrest. Even though he told the police everything about Susie, according to ABC News, it took an old missing person report from Balch's aunt, a DNA test from Balch's mother, and a photo comparison between a composite headshot and a photo of Balch to positively identify her in 2013, years after Rifkin was imprisoned. Of course, at the time of the crime, Joel Rifkin was happy to have gotten away with it, and he soon began looking for more victims. About a year later, he killed another sex worker named Julie Blackbread while his family was away. Although this crime was very similar to Balch's, this time Rifkin avoided disposing of any body parts in the woods and instead dumped them in rivers and canals, where he weighed the body's remains with concrete. Shortly thereafter, Rifkin founded a landscaping company, a seemingly respectable career choice. But in reality, he often used landscaping tools to hide the bodies of his victims before disposing of them. By the summer of 1993, Rifkin had killed as many as 17 women, most of them sex workers or drug addicts. According to criminal psychologist and author Frank F. Weber, authorities theorized that Rifkin was targeting sex workers because he believed his biological mother might be a sex worker. But according to Rifkin himself, his decisions to target sex workers were a strategy to avoid capture during the killing spree. The prostitutes were killed because they had no one. They did not have permanent relationships. No family cares. No one was ever going to look for them. How did the police accidentally catch the serial killer? Joel Rifkin's final victim would become his downfall. In June 1993, Rifkin strangled 22-year-old sex worker Tiffany Bresciani, then drove her body to his family home. While on the way, bring a bag and rope. Once home, he placed the wrapped body in a wheelbarrow in the garage, where it began to rot for about 3 days in the summer heat. On June 28, 1993, Rifkin was on his way to dispose of a body when cops noticed his truck was missing a rear license plate. When they tried to stop him, Rifkin panicked and led authorities on a high-speed car chase that ended with him crashing into an electric pole. When the police approached the wrecked car, they immediately noticed the stench and soon found Bresciani's body in the back of the truck. Under arrest, Rifkin quickly confessed that he had killed not only Bresciani but 16 other women, many of whom were sex workers, making him the most notorious serial killer in New York history. Although he was only convicted of 9 murders, authorities feel relatively confident that he was guilty of all the crimes to which he confessed, as he provided specific details and even drew maps showing the places where he disposed of the bodies. In 1996, Rifkin was sentenced to 203 years in prison, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. According to the New York Times, the serial killer apologized for the crimes during his trial and said, "You all think I'm nothing but a monster, and you're right. Part of me must be too." Joel Rifkin is currently serving his sentence at Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. Since being in prison, he has participated in a number of interviews in which he has provided insights into the mind of a serial killer. In a 2011 interview with CBS New York, he said it was very hard to stop killing people and noted that killing, for him, was an addiction comparable to smoking. "You think of people as objects," he said, but despite his extreme dehumanization of sex workers, he was ultimately proven wrong in his assumption that no one would care about his victims because they were sex workers, as some of the victims' family members attended his trial, and a number of them also provided statements. "Iris was not perfect or an angel," said Carol de Leon, the sister of one of Rifkin's confirmed victims, 25-year-old Iris Sanchez. "But I will say she shouldn't have died the way she did, strangled by Joel Rifkin, then discarded like trash. Iris Sanchez will remain peacefully in our hearts as of today. But you, Joel Rifkin, will now rot in hell." After his arrest, Joel Rifkin quickly became famous for his crime spree, especially in New York. Despite the seriousness of Joel Rifkin's crimes, his name ended up being part of a light-hearted plot twist on the beloved sitcom Seinfeld. Just 5 months after Rifkin's arrest in 1993, a memorable episode of Seinfeld aired in which the character Elaine Benes is dating a man with the same name as the serial killer, and pleads with him to change his name because she doesn't want her date to have a killer's name. The comedic events continue as the fictional Joel tries to find a solution to this dilemma, especially because he likes his name the way it is. Ironically, Ellen eventually suggested that he change his name to O.J. after browsing a sports magazine just 7 months before football star O.J. Simpson was accused of committing murder himself. Reference to the serial killer, although an independent film, Joel, was released in 2018, which dramatizes the killer's life. More recently, in 2023, A&E released the special, Cold Case Files, The Rifkin Murders, which contains several never-before-seen interviews with the killer. Seeing Joel Rifkin's calm and matter-of-fact nature while discussing his horrific crimes may make some wonder if anything could have been done to prevent him from becoming a monster. But we will never know, and here we have reached the end of the story. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.